The news you can count on. Mayport to Ponte Vedra Beach. The Island Times News Update begins right now. Here's Tom Patton.
Welcome to the Island Times News Update. I'm Tom Patton. Bruce Thomason has held a variety of titles over his career, including police officer, chief of police, and now Jacksonville Beach City Councilman. Well, Bruce recently added a new title to that list, award-winning author for his most recent novel, Perception of Power. This week on the Island Times News Update, we talk with Councilman Thomason about his most recent book and the process he took to become an author. Bruce, what was it that inspired you to write your first novel?
Well, it's funny. Back in 2007, my wife and I were trying to think of something different to give the grandkids besides another video game. And I came up with the idea of writing a Christmas story in which they would star as the heroes in it. So I wrote Santa Super Rescue, How Beasley Claus Tried to Steal Christmas. And I gave the kids superpowers, and they use those when Santa's kidnapped by his evil second cousin. They rescued him and saved Christmas. So we gave that to them as a Christmas present.
And then how did the series of novels that you have since produced grow out of that?
Well, my wife's been after me for years to write about all the crazy stuff she's heard, the real stories of my 45-year law enforcement career. So I finally decided, after writing the little children's story, give it a try.
So what's your process for writing? Do you sit down with a blank computer screen and just let it flow, or do you do outlines and all those things that all of the professional authors say you're supposed to do?
Well, it's funny. Some authors couldn't work without an outline. Others are what you call a seat of the pantser. I'm a seat of the pantser. I have an idea for the story, how it's going to start, and an idea how it's going to end. But everything in between flows once the characters become real to me.
So when you're writing, is it a process where you set aside time to write? Do you write when an inspiration strikes you, or is it more structured than that?
I was a lot more structured when I first started. I wrote the first book in 7 months, start to finish. The second one I went through a lot of rewrites, so it took a little longer. I retired in the middle of the third book, Perception of Power, and so that took quite a lot longer than I expected. But some of it is inspiration, some of it is chores that I need to take care of, and of course in my position as a city council member that does take some time also. But I try to work in as much time as I can each week, several days writing.
So do you drive the characters, or do the characters drive you?
That's interesting. I read a book by Stephen King years ago.
I have that book, On Writing.
On Writing. And in there he described the process as sitting back in the corner and paying attention to what's happening in front of him and simply recording it. And that has been the most exciting part of this process. That's exactly what happens to me. I'm in the corner, I've got my computer on my lap, and I'm simply typing what I see and hear in front of me.
Why did you choose to set your novels in Jacksonville Beach? A lot of authors will use their town for an inspiration, and yet they'll want to change some of the details so that it gives at least the plausible deniability of what it is they're writing. But you came right home and said, we're in Jacksonville Beach. Why did you do that?
I love this community here. It is a beautiful place to live and to work, and I wanted to give a shout out to this is our home.
You know, you mentioned that your wife Jackie wanted you to write about the weird things that had happened to you as a police officer. But how much of what it is that we're reading, and I noticed that particularly in Perception of Power, there are things like that very first automobile accident at the very beginning of the book. Was that based on something that you actually saw as a police officer, or did it have some grain of truth to it? And then, is a lot of what it is that we're reading, are they things that you've actually experienced as a police officer?
Well, to answer your first question, that was just sheer inspiration. And in fact, I had originally, instead of a concrete truck, it was a milk truck that spilled its load. And my wife, Jackie, thought that that wouldn't be believable. So I listened very carefully to her ideas. She's very good at that. So I changed it. But there are a lot of things throughout the series that were actual events that either I experienced or I worked it as a police officer or was aware of those types of things happening.
Why did you decide to go with something that was different with a more political theme in the third novel when the first two are more about police activity?
I think part of it probably is running for office myself and being accused of being a politician. and I made it very clear to people that that I was a public servant for 45 years. I'm going to stay a public servant, and I'm not ever going to tell you what I think you want to hear. Many politicians, unfortunately, do exactly that, and so it inspired me to write about politicians who are in it for themselves.
When you look at the characters in Perception of Power, and that's a little bit different than it would have been from your police career, are those some of those characters, and I'm thinking particularly of the governor's right-hand man, or the senator's right-hand man, his aide, are those kinds of characters based on people that you've met, or are they complete fabrications?
Well, that particular character, Lou Dunlop, is a fabrication, but I have met people like that in my career who have those characteristics, let's say.
The book takes a lot of twists and turns, and without giving anything away, there were a couple of things that happened that were really very unexpected to me. And again, you say you write that organically, and I'm trying to do this without giving away a critical plot element for somebody who might want to read the book. But when you go to have something surprising happen, does it surprise you as well?
That's a funny question. It absolutely does. And it's like I'll start writing a scene and I'll have an idea what's going to happen in this scene, and all of a sudden, sitting back in the corner, the characters take over and something completely different comes out that I didn't expect.
You're watching the Island Times News Update. I'm Tom Patton. We'll be back with more with Councilman Bruce Thomason in just a moment.
The news you can count on. The Island Times News Update will be right back.
Beaches Academy Child Care Center in Jacksonville Beach has been offering affordable, loving child care to families in the Beaches communities for 35 years. Conveniently located on Penman Road, Beaches Academy offers care for children from infants through preschool, with programs that encourage learning and outdoor play. Our affordable tuition means families can get quality child care at a price that fits their budget. Contact Beaches Academy at 246-3885 and schedule a tour of our center. Beaches Academy, the child always comes first. Charlie's Tropic Heating and Air Conditioning in Atlantic Beach offers a full range of residential and commercial heating and air conditioning services, from new installation to replacement and remodeling. Charlie's Tropic Heating and Air Conditioning can keep your home comfortable year-round, and they offer preventive maintenance contracts to keep your system running at peak efficiency. Charlie's Tropic Heating and Air Conditioning is an authorized Bryant dealer and will service all brands. For year-round comfort in your home or business, contact the original Charlie's Tropic Heating and Air Conditioning at 241-1788.
What is significant about winning the bronze medal in the Florida Book Awards?
Oh wow, that was that was a shock to both of us. We sent the book into several writing competitions, and the Florida Book Awards is very focused on literary fiction. There is a category for popular fiction, but we thought lumping in our story with all sorts of popular fiction, it would be a lot more difficult to win something. So we were surprised and very honored by the award.
I notice in your writing, I see some similarities with other authors that I've read in the past, and particularly Florida authors. Florida authors seem to have a genre all their own. You're not as tongue-in-cheek as, say, a Carl Hiaasen, but you do have some of that same writing style. Who are some of the authors that have influenced you in your writing style?
Well, of course, Stephen King, even though he wrote horror, David Baldacci, Michael Connelly, probably the most famous one, and the name escapes me now, from LAPD. Yeah, he wrote the first real police stories that just inspired me back in the 70s. And so I read Robert Crace, Lee Child. They're a little far out for me, but yeah.
And that does lead me to my next question, which is, they always say that an author should read a lot. How much do you actually read?
Every day. I've always got something besides a newspaper. I'm reading magazines, and I'm always reading novels too.
Do you read mostly novels, or do you like nonfiction as well?
I read both, but probably a majority of it is fiction.
If someone were to come to you and say, Bruce, I want to write a book as well, would you have any particular inspiration or advice?
The most important thing is to write what you know. Don't try to create something with which you're not at all familiar. One of the things that has always bothered me, not quite in this same realm, but close, is an author who will write about something and won't do the research and have information in there that's just completely incorrect, like assault weapons with 400-round magazines, tasers that knock you out for 15 minutes. Neither of those are accurate, and it always bothers me when I read that. So write what you know.
What do your former colleagues at the Jacksonville Beach Police Force think of your work?
I guess I can't speak for them. I think it was very funny when the first book, Body Toll, came out. I tried very hard not to pattern any of the characters after anyone in the department, but there was great speculation after reading it. Oh, I know who that character is. Some of the characters are compilations of people I've known. Some of them are just taken right from characters I knew in my other departments. Now, in Perception of Power, there are a couple of characters in there who are real people. Joey Crutchfield is one of the main investigators. And he and I worked together in my hometown department in Texas for 19 years. So I talked to him about it, and I asked him if he was interested in being a character, and he was very excited about it. So the incident at the start of Perception of Power involving Joey and a robber was a real incident that occurred.
So is the fourth novel in the works already?
It is. I was working on it about 15 minutes before you showed up.
And can you give us any insight as to where that one's going?
Well, this one is going to involve Russian bad guys and the computer will have an integral part of this particular book. But as always, Clay Randall, the hero, will face lots of adversity.
All right, well, we'll look forward to that, Bruce. Thank you very much for taking some time.